Buonasera spettatori e benvenuti a World of Warships Legends. Mi chiamo TRZ Plays e oggi parleremo della corazzata italiana Tier 7, la Roma. So I hope you enjoyed my little bit of Italian practice there. But as I said in Italian, we are going to be talking about the Tier 7 Italian battleship Roma. Roma is probably the most famous of the Vittorio Veneto class, of which 4 were at least confirmed. We have Vittorio Veneto, Vittorio, Roma and Impero. I believe it was Vittorio Veneto that was later renamed to Italia, or either Vittorio Veneto or Littorio. Most likely it's Littorio. These were basically the counters to the Queen Elizabeth class battleships, because they have pretty much the same caliber except it's 381mm guns. So pretty much around one of the smallest guns in Tier 7. Well, actually, at least it's a bit bigger than Bismarck's. In terms of history for the Roma, it was famous for one thing, and that is blowing up at the hands of a German radio-guided bomb, the Fritz X. It took a hit directly between the funnels, causing one of the magazines to detonate and the B turret to go flying. And Roma eventually capsized and blew up. Her other sisters, Vittorio Veneto and Littorio, are rather very popular for obvious reasons. Vittorio Veneto being the one that ran away at Cape Matapan and was so far even hunted into the Mediterranean. Littorio got attacked at Taranto with most of the Italian fleet. Now, in terms of history, I could go on for Roma in even greater detail in another video if so needed. But that's so far all I know in terms of history for Roma. Roma eventually was also playing a part in the development of Russian designs as well, because if you look at something like Vladivostok, it actually looks very similar to Roma except the funnel design. Roma looks like this, Vladivostok looks like this. They even have the same turret angles. Now, a lot of the Italian designs we see here also played a part in Soviet designs, hence why they look similar. Now, enough rambling about the Soviets and the Italians, and let's talk about our commander, Paolo di Revel. Now, this is what I call an accuracy build. Now, the thing is, if you want range, you could swap the first skill, Brawler, out for not one for the Nuisance, because Brawler actually reduces the range of battleship guns. With Roma, you do get actually decent range rather, not good. Not one for the Nuisance reduces disc of fire flooding. I'd go for Brawler because of the reload. Crisscross, already fast turret traverse, so why not just slap it there. Now, I've seen this skill, Artisan's Touch, and increases the AP shell penetration multiplier. If you have that, you're not gonna pen anything. If you have that and Jejard, it's impossible. You'll just overpen battleships as well. So not really worth it having that and Jejard. As for other skills, we have On Second Thought, which reduces the shell type switching time if all main battery guns are loaded. So basically you could switch faster between HE and AP. Firefighter is a lot more useful than that, but I'd go for this one in case you encountered a sneaky destroyer like I have. And Reaching Out XXL. You could go for Master Mechanic. I recommend Master Mechanic more, but that range really is useful. And of course, Will to Rebuild. Running with Scissors is useful if you're running a full Brawler build. As for our inspirations, this may seem heresy for me as a Brawler player, but I went for Cunningham and AL Queen Elizabeth. Yes, I actually found a use for AL Queen Elizabeth. Because look at that, look at those skills. Reduces reload time, increases AP shell damage, and the shell grouping. Cunningham increases shell grouping, so you'd get marvelous accuracy. I'm talking about like stat rivals Lenin. Well, maybe not that extreme, but still. And of course, Paolo's base trait is the quickened reload time of the battleship's main guns. Actually, my reload is 22 seconds on the Roma. Battlecruiser reload. Let's go about the upgrades. We have aiming systems. I recommend aiming systems a lot more. Propulsion mod. Obvious reason, because you can't have enough speed in Roma. Target acquisition, that's literally the only one there. And main battery for the reload time in particular. That's also why I have a 22-second reload. So I'd recommend those. You could experiment with a secondary build, but I don't recommend it. Loadout. 22-second reload time. That's literally, it's right there, 22-second reload time. As for HE, you really don't have to unless you see a destroyer, unless it's a Camo, in that case just shoot AP. As for here, we have spotter, or catapult fighter, or secondaries. I'd heavily lean on the spotter plane though. As for Camo, it does have a Camo. Personally, I like my Roma when it has Italian blue, and that I mean completely naked, which it actually just makes it look like Vittorio Veneto more. But I just like the Camo as well. So the stats, 65,400, about the same HP as Borodino on PC. Borodino is basically a mini Kremlin. Around the same HP. Artillery, again, you do get the 381mm guns, which is questionable, but you still get good pens and also Italian velocity. AA, not even existent, but the thing is, the average damage per second is actually better instead of having flak. So that is one I recommend, because that's what I like about Roma's AA. It's continuous damage rather than flak. Maneuverability, it's great handling. It is just amazing. Concealment, not so much. You can't go for a stealth build on Roma yet, until we get an actually good dispersion commander. Armor, oh boy. Very busted armor scheme. And with Georgia, you have a 32mm bow. So if you angle properly, you should be safe. And in terms of armor, Roma's guns are probably like the easiest to knock out besides Jean Bart. In terms of superstructure, you do have plenty of superstructure, but not one that can be ridiculously farmed like Bismarck. You have a 32mm nose, so you should be safe for now. And we can look at the Citadel, which is lower than the Russians. But the thing is, show any broadside and Roma will explode. So not very ideal. And if we were to look at its overview stats, it's tough because it has an above average HP rating and ironclad. So this thing is probably one of the tankiest battleships at tier 7. So Roma is actually a good ship. I recommend Roma. Will she come back? I honestly doubt it, because of how people consider Roma to be one of the worst tier 7 battleships. At one point I was one of those people. Then I put in a decent range build on it, and it turns out you could actually perform a lot better with that. Because originally I was running, instead of ALQE, I was running Ciliax. So I'd recommend ALQE for this. This is probably the only ship that ALQE actually works on as an inspiration. So from now on, I don't consider Roma to be the worst tier 7, I consider Champagne to be the worst tier 7, and we'll get to that once I cover Champagne. So that's all I have for today's video, and I will also show you some gameplay coming up right now, as well as some gameplay at the start, which would be some new features. I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you very soon.
nemico distrutto.
Roger.
La squadra nemica è in vantaggio. La corazzata nemica sta colando a picco.
Avvistato cacciatorpediniere nemico.
Problema risolto, signore.
Avvistata corazzata.
Caccia torpediniere nemico colato a picco.
Requesting assistance.
La nostra squadra è in vantaggio.
Ricognitore in volo.
Avvistato incrociatore nemico.
Danno critico a torretta principale. Ricognitore di ritorno.